The pandemic is changing the way we travel and the way we work, too. As millions of Americans wait to return to the office, many are seizing the chance to work remotely from anywhere, and a lot are staying longer in the rentals. Airbnb says nearly half of the nights booked from last July to September were for stays of 7 days or longer. CEO, that's Brian Chesky, announced this yesterday. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to be traveling and staying in Airbnbs over the next few weeks. He joins us first on CBS Mornings from his Airbnb in Atlanta. Hey, Brian Chesky. I'm so glad to see you, Brian.
Good to see you, Gayle. I'm so happy to be here from Atlanta.
Yeah, so I'm curious. Listen, all of us have stayed in Airbnbs. And I know you've stayed in Airbnbs, too, yourself. But what is the point you're making? Why are you doing this now?
Well, Gayle, I think that the pandemic has very likely caused one of the biggest changes to travel since the advent of commercial flying. And that is because for the first time, millions of people, not everyone, but millions of people don't have to go to an office 5 days a week. And because many of these people don't have to go to the office 5 days a week, they're not tethered to the city they live in. And so they can now potentially live anywhere. And so some people are choosing long weekends. Some people are choosing to go away for the entire summers if they have families. But others, like me, I can actually live kind of nomadically. And so every couple of weeks, I'm going to be traveling to different cities across the country and, even around the world, because we're seeing millions of people on Airbnb interested in doing this. And I want to really test the experience, optimize it, and show that you can actually run a really big company doing this. And it means a lot of people can do this.
So Brian, you're telling me that you went onto the Airbnb website, clicked around through all those pictures, and then picked the place that you're in right now.
I did. And I what I'm looking for is I don't really want to feel like I'm traveling. I want to feel like I actually live somewhere, even if I'm there just for a couple weeks. And so I'm looking for a place in a local community. I'm here in Reynoldstown in Atlanta. This is an incredibly nice home by a really wonderful host named Kimberly. And I really love great design, good Wi-Fi so I can do interviews, things like that.
Wi-Fi is key, that's for sure.
That's right.
I want to talk about a new policy that you guys are rolling out in Oregon to fight racial bias. I know that there was a lawsuit settled. Tell us about that policy.
Well, I think just to step back, Airbnb is all about connecting people all over the world. On New Year's Eve, 4.5 million people were staying in Airbnb. So if we're going to bring people together, the opposite of bringing people together is discrimination. We don't stand for it. We make every member on Airbnb sign a community commitment. Now, one of the things we did is we worked with the state of Oregon to limit how much information a guest shows about them. So we don't show their full name or their photo, just their initials. We think this could reduce discrimination of hosts deciding they don't want to host somebody because of the color of their skin or their name. Now, the key thing is we're constantly innovating and testing different ways to reduce discrimination. We have an entire team dedicated to this. And so I think that for Airbnb to work, we cannot have discrimination because that's an existential threat to the company.
How has Omicron changed the game for you, Brian? Because I got my favorite daughter, Kirby, just had a little baby, and she's looking for childcare. And one of the things she told me last night is they're going to look for Airbnb to quarantine someone before they bring them into the house because Omicron is so off the charts. And I actually thought that's a really great idea. How has that changed the game, or has Omicron changed the game for you?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the longer the pandemic goes on and every new strain keeps the pandemic going on longer, the more people don't travel the way they used to. They used to go to a city for a couple days, typically for business travel, often staying in a hotel district. And the longer it goes on, Gayle, you're totally right. People are now looking to stay longer. Almost half our business is longer than a week. A fifth of our business by nights are people staying longer than a month. We have people staying for entire seasons. They're obviously quarantining, they're getting away. So it's really changing the game. The longer this pandemic goes on, the more the world never goes back to the way it was. And that means travel isn't going back to the way it was. It means that traveling and living are starting to blur, and people are truly living in homes all over the world.
And what happens if you find something, Brian, that's not cool in an Airbnb property? What you gonna do?
What I'm gonna do is get right on the phone with my team and say, we need to figure out the root causes so no one else experiences this. And I'm already creating a list of ideas based on this experience. And I think that one of the big risks of a CEO is you're stuck in your ivory tower. And I feel like you gotta get out in the field and be constantly using your product.
Well, Brian,
that's great, Brian.
Don't forget to leave a review. It's part of being part of the community.
Yes.
We appreciate you being
Great to see you, Brian.
Being part of our
community.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Gayle.
Thank you very much.